Security analyst is joining us now live. Hi there. We heard what is being put on the table there now. Is it a goer? Is it a plan that will work, do you think? Will it make any difference?
It's a big step in the right direction, and if it's implemented, it'll make a difference. But the question here is whether Syrian rebel groups will be willing to stop fighting when there's no guarantee that Assad's going to leave. What could really help the situation is if the Russian government endorsed the idea that Assad has to leave power at the end of this transition. The regime can remain in place.
Well, they were saying it should be the choice of the Syrian people. I think they were both pretty much agreed on that, yeah?
Well, it's obvious that the Syrian people don't want him to be in power, and there's a concern that if there's an election and Assad is in power, it won't be legitimate. So it would be most productive if Russia were to endorse him as an individual stepping aside, and then as for who replaces him, that can be decided by the Syrian people.
Let's focus on Paris now for a minute while we got you on the line. How can it be that ISIL, Daesh, whatever you want to call it, was able to grow so powerful as to be able to terrorise a major city right in the heart of Europe with so many communications there? You'd have thought so much intel on what's going on in that city. How did it happen?
This is a dramatic new phase in ISIS's capabilities, and it largely comes down to the fact that they are growing in the amount of recruits that they have because of the success. The appearance of success that they have in Syria and elsewhere is what enables them to get wave after wave of recruits, and things like this become inevitable as you increasingly gain recruits and more territory.
What reaction do you expect now from France, do you think?
There will be military retaliation. France simply has to. And one of the things that Russia and France and the U.S. should all unite on is creating a narrative that shows that ISIS is suffering losses in places like Sinjar. We have to beat the perception that ISIS is succeeding on the ground, because that's what enables them to radicalize in Europe as well as in Russia.
I mean, Russia's, of course, playing its part in fighting ISIL on the ground there in Syria. Will there be closer ties between maybe France, maybe Russia?
I sure hope so. I hope that there'll be greater coordination in terms of who's being targeted in Syria, because the position of the U.S. and its European allies is that only about 5 to 10% of Russian airstrikes are actually targeting Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Of course, that's disputed by Russia.
Word, and the momentum continued. And now is the test.
Dov, you can still hear me. Leading diplomats today gathered in Vienna then for this, as we see this new round of talks in Syria. Is this Paris tragedy going to trigger a more flexible approach from the West on uniting efforts against ISIL finally? It's picking up really on our first question again.
Sure. Well, I hope it would be a more flexible approach on the part of everyone. What we need to see is a common list, and they did talk about this as part of the plan, a common list of who's a terrorist as well as who's an extremist. And who should be embraced and who should be targeted. Hopefully everyone can get on the same page in identifying friend from foe among the Syrian rebel forces, because there are good Syrian rebels that Russia and the U.S. and Europe should unite behind. And then there's also extremists like the Muslim Brotherhood, who we need to account for, that may not be Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but they're still bad guys.
All right there, Ryan, thank you for your input. Nice to talk to you tonight on what is such a sad set of events that have happened in Paris over the last 24 hours. Thanks for your input. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Right, Mauro.